Okay, stop the presses, stop everything, right? Because this is going to be my Justice League movie review, and let's forget Marvel vs. DC. Let's forget the DCEU backlash from its movies, minus Wonder Woman. Let's forget all of it, because I'm sick and tired of hearing it, to be honest with you. I'm done. And if you guys don't know, I'm very honest when it comes to movie reviews, at least when my preference of what I think about a movie. And I want to be as honest and open-minded to this movie as possible. And that's why this is going to be an honest Justice League review to my perspective, right? So, hey everybody, it's Martian Monk here, and as we know, as I just explained, Justice League movie review. So, Justice League, as I would say, is a fun superhero film with problems, but you don't really care about the problems as much if you stay as open-minded as possible and try to have a good time. Because this movie is so fun that you freaking forget about its problems, right? However, it still has problems, and we're going to talk about them in a second. But again, what I wanted to say that I referenced to in the earlier parts of the film, when you go into this movie, forget Marvel vs. DC, right? I mean, does this movie have problems? Of course it does. But Iron Man 3 had problems. I thought Thor Ragnarok had problems in the first half. And I thought that some of the other Marvel movies I've seen have had problems, right? Marvel movies have problems too, so just forget all of the fighting, right? Kevin Feige has said forget the fighting. James Gunn has said forget the fighting. It's just ridiculous. Justice League, let's get to my review of it and kind of break it down, right? So this film, again, brings back the classics from BVS and Wonder Woman herself and Batman, of course. And Superman's in here too. Supes is not dead. But before we get even further than that, this is going to be a spoiler review, so just watch out and get ready for some spoilers. I hope you've seen the movie, because you should go see it if you haven't. Now, we have to talk about, of course, the elephant in the room, the tragedy of Zack Snyder, and why he didn't get to finish this movie, which is very sad, but I really wish that everything in his family would have been okay. I really wish his daughter would have been safe and sound, because this movie needed him. Joss Whedon turns this film in a 180, right? I mean, the movie starts out in a dark-ish, but still fun and kind of like mysterious tone. And then Joss Whedon in the second half 180s it and turns it into a very popcorny, Marvel-esque film, right? And also, he Joss Whedons it. He has no respect for Wonder Woman as a female character at all. He has no respect for how the actors on his set felt when he took over. And he, there was so much news articles about him not taking over Snyder's work. He took over Snyder's work. And I really think that a Zack Snyder cut of this movie should be released, because he cut a lot of it, right? He cut so much of this movie out. He cut frickin' William Dafoe, right? You don't cut out William Dafoe of a movie. But I understand why he was cut. But there was just so much turned around. And, not even that. It was so much turned around, but it was also disrespectful, in my opinion, to Snyder and his personal, family matter that happened, right? It was just really appalling. And that's right, appalling. I said it, I went there, says the Flash's surprised face, right? I mean, I just didn't like it. I thought it was ridiculous. I thought that just the idea that Joss Whedon would go there was crazy. So let's break this down. And we have a lot to talk about with Wonder Woman coming up soon. Joss Whedon forced a lot of the actors of this movie, well, all of the actors really, to do a lot of jokes they didn't really think were funny, right? And they wanted to stick with Snyder and Terrio's original script, right? Although, I don't know if that script was any better. Probably was, though, to be honest with you, because of Whedon. And they didn't want to do a lot of the things here. So we'll talk about Wonder Woman real quick, because we had to go through character by character. Wonder Woman was great in the first half of the movie. Her opening sequence with her saving the people in the museum and the school, the school, right, was just fantastic. It was so great. It was so Wonder Woman, right? You were just like, oh, she's here. And then in the second half, it really drops the bomb, right? I think Zack Snyder was to blame a little bit with how the Themyscirans looked. But, Wonder Woman, the joke, the chest joke, and we'll talk about that probably later on in this review, but the chest joke with the Flash, the same joke that Whedon used in Avengers Age of Ultron with Black Widow, right? It was appalling. And also, Wonder Woman was too underpowered in this movie, so that's why I had to put her down on the list, right? I mean, it just didn't work. So we'll talk about that one joke later, though. And then Batman was freaking amazing in this movie. I love Ben Affleck. I'm not going to say it again. Perfect for the DCEU. And I hope he doesn't freaking leave because of all the negative things that people have said about his Batman. Just the first opening shot of him as Batman was glorious. It's like if Kevin Conroy Arkham Games Batman was in live action, right? Unfortunately, Batman's never really fit in Justice League stories because he doesn't have any powers, which is kind of, again, unfortunate. So here, it was kind of hard to believe that he could bring this team together at some times because the script didn't support it, because there wasn't a lot. Batman's usually a strategist when it comes to the Justice League, and there wasn't a lot of strategy for him here except for Superman's return. By the way, let's talk about that. Superman's return, nothing like the comics, and I love that. I don't think the black suit would have worked, even though Henry Cavill teased it. They probably cut it out. I don't think his return would have worked how they did it in the comics, right? And I like that Snyder, Terrio, and I guess maybe Whedon too, really kind of reimagined how Superman would be resurrected, and it totally worked. The fight scene with him destroying the entire league, especially when he looked at the Flash and he was like, yeah, I know you're coming for me, was amazing, right? It was just such a captivating fight sequence to see such a powerhouse character take down everyone. Aquaman was actually kind of one of my least favorite characters here. He was funny, right? I liked the whole scene with him with the lasso of truth, right? When it was like, he was confessing, right? Because he was with the lasso the whole time. That was amazing. But I really do feel like at times he was a caricature instead of character, right? He really had no purpose other than, he gets motivated by the attack at Atlantis to help the League, and then, of course, there was a mother box at Atlantis that tied him into the film. But he was still a notable character, and I think this really helps us get used to him for his solo film. So I'm looking forward to more Aquaman. Cyborg, hands down one of my favorite characters. Reason why? I think Ray Fisher was an amazing actor, and I really think that people are complaining too much about the whole Cyborg's not funny thing. A guy who loses his whole football career and 92% of his body isn't going to crack jokes, right? But I really do feel like it's the essence of him finding people he belongs with and finding people who accept him, which is the League. By the end of the movie, when he was cracking jokes, I feel like he accepted who he was to some degree, not all degrees. He'll still have some problems with it later on, but I feel like he's warming up to it, and that's what matters. And Ray Fisher gave a very compelling performance to it. Ezra Miller, I like him as the Flash, and I'm still rooting for him. A lot of people didn't like him here. I thought his jokes at times were too unnecessary, which again, he was part of the cast that Whedon forced those jokes. So, and especially again, the Wonder Woman chest joke when he lands on her chest, same thing in Age of Ultron, right? It was just recycled bad material that Whedon wanted to put in. It was so forced. And Ezra Miller, Ben Affleck, all of the cast have expressed how forced it was to work with Whedon. Cut Whedon, right? Don't let him direct Batgirl. Other than that, I felt like Ezra Miller's take was fresh on The Flash, and I really do want to see more of it because there's potential there to be better. Steppenwolf, again, also not like the comics, which is, not surprising just because of how he was portrayed in the trailers. I really think they should have gone all Darkseid here. I think Steppenwolf was a mistake. One, this movie really feels like they're closing the whole chapter on Darkseid, the parademons. So, stuff they worked so hard to build in the Nightmare sequence in BVS, and then you just watch this movie and you're like, well, they really tied it up here. And that's the thing, the movie's kind of rushed in a lot of places because I think that's what they wanted to do. They knew that the whole Darkseid stuff wasn't going to work. Darkseid, Apocalypse, and all that's a very complex concept for a lot of moviegoers to understand in this amount of time of a film. Even in BVS, the extended cut was really hard to understand for some people. So I really do feel like it was rushed, right? They really wanted to get through this because they want to do Injustice League, which we'll talk about in the spoiler, in the spoiler end credit video. Overall, I had some problems with that, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The supporting characters, though, like the really supporting ones, like Jim Gordon, Lois Lane, Martha Kent, they were fun to have. I really feel like they were kind of like sprinkles of little like extra in here, right? They were really interesting. The only problem with Lois Lane, I didn't feel like her with Amy Adams, I didn't think her performance was compelling enough when Clark came back. I feel like she would have been much more like, not dramatized, but I feel like she would have had more to say, to be honest with you. And then, there's a lot of surprises in this film. I love the Green Lantern tease. I thought that was fantastic in the whole battle, the flashback battle with Steppenwolf. I thought that was great. But the problem with Steppenwolf, the problem with a lot of it is just, and these are unpleasant surprises, is that the CGI in this movie is very rushed as well. I don't like the Batcave. I thought it was really underdone. And I think that's because they had so much reshooting to do. I don't like a lot of it, right? I think that it was just too much. And I think they need to fix that. But overall, And I'm going to do another video to go in-depth in some of these, right? I'm going to do a Wonder Woman in-depth video for Joss Whedon, right? I'm going to do all these videos, so don't worry. This is kind of like a rushed review, but I'm giving you a general sense. Overall, I think Justice League is a fun film, and I don't think people should ignore it. I think people should embrace it and form their own opinion. I've heard people that haven't even seen the movie judging it, right? And I don't think that's really fair if you haven't seen the film. I think that it has problems, but I really do feel like this is the direction that the DCEU needed to take to really get forward, right? And I feel like this is the last time we're going to have bumps in the road, because the tone, especially for Snyder's tone in the first half, really sets up something new and promising. I really do feel like it's a new beginning, a DC rebirth, if you will. So that's my review of Justice League. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be making more in-depth videos about things I liked about this movie, so kind of like an in-depth discussion of the film, in certain parts like Green Lantern and stuff like that. We'll have an Easter egg video, a Wonder Woman video, we'll have a lot of it. So what did you guys think of the movie? Comment down below if you agree with some of the things that I pointed out in this video, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.